Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something far darker than royal fashion or courtly secrets. The firelight flickers, and somewhere out there, the wind carries a moan, part sigh, part scream. You're not quite sure which. Welcome to the remote manor of the Eldridge family, where velvet drapes hide more than dust, and the air tastes like secrets fermented over centuries. The walls are damp not from rain, but from sweat. Whispers echo through the halls, not the kind you lean in to hear, but the kind you instinctively step back from. This isn't just history. It's nightmare wrapped in silk. You probably won't survive this one with your sanity intact. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where in the world you are right now and what time it is where you're listening. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It starts in 1572. A lone carriage cuts through the English countryside beneath a waxing moon. The horses' hooves clatter rhythmically, echoing through a landscape that seems somehow untouched by time or untouched by anything living. Your feet ache from the journey, though you've done nothing but sit. The further you go, the more it feels like the road bends away from civilization. The coachman doesn't speak. He hasn't since the sun set. You want to ask if you're nearly there, but something about his stiff posture and the crucifix tucked under his collar tells you not to. Then there it is, Eldridge House. Not quite a castle, but not a home either. It looms on a low hill, its silhouette jagged against the stars, like broken teeth. Ivy climbs its sides like veins strangling its stone walls. The windows are mostly dark, save for one on the third floor, flickering candlelight, as if someone or something is waiting for you. No one greets you at the gate. You open the iron door yourself. It lets out a groan so human you half expect it to apologize. Inside, the air is thick, not musty, not stale, heavy, like incense left to rot. You walk past portraits with eyes too lifelike, skin too pale, and dates that make no sense. Some of them seem older than the house. One bears a name you'll come to know well, Thaddeus Eldridge. He was the beginning, not of the family name that goes back further, but of the corruption. The Eldridges were minor nobility in Elizabethan England, wealthy enough to be eccentric, but not powerful enough to be scrutinized. Their estate thrived on trade, rare imports, and whispery rumors of occult dealings. Thaddeus, the youngest son of a failing baron, was sent to the Ottoman court at 16, ostensibly to learn commerce. But what he brought back from Constantinople wasn't just knowledge, it was hunger. They say he came back with eyes too wide and fingers too thin, that he no longer slept, but instead paced muttering words that twisted the air around him. And his desires, oh, those were the most twisted of all. The first documented incident was in 1575. A maid named Clara disappeared. The household told the villagers she had eloped. But a gravedigger, half mad from drink, claimed to have seen a woman's body, pale and marked with carved symbols, buried near the eastern orchard under cover of night. He was silenced soon after. His throat torn out by wolves, they said. But wolves haven't been native to England since the 15th century. When you reach the third-floor chamber, it's as if you've walked through centuries of wrongness. The air here is colder, and the candlelight you saw from the carriage window is guttering in a rusted holder. Beside it sits a book. No title on the spine. You open it. The pages are stiff with what you pray is wax, but it isn't. The first entry is in Latin. You trace the ink with your finger. It trembles. This isn't a journal. It's a manual, a how-to, a doctrine. And every page drips with the unholy. Most of the entries begin with anatomical drawings. The female form dissected not scientifically, but sacrilegiously. The diagrams mark not organs, but pleasure thresholds, submission zones, and something called the key of red mercy. These aren't medical observations. These are instructions for ritualized degradation. Sex not as connection, but as ceremony. A desecration choreographed like liturgy. Your eyes scan the bottom of the page and you spot a date. August 12th, 1576. That's today. Centuries ago, but still today. You hear something behind you. A creak. Not floorboards, but bed springs. The bed in the room isn't empty. It's neatly made, but at the center, under a heavy quilt, is the outline of a body. You step forward before your mind catches up. The sheet falls away. What you see is not quite a corpse. It's preserved barely. The skin is sallow, drawn tight over bones. The eyes are sewn shut with red thread, and the mouth is open, filled with dried roses. On the chest, carved deep, is the Eldridge crest, two serpents coiled around a torch. Beneath it, scrawled in blood, is one word, bride. This was how Thaddeus began the family practice. You see, the Eldridge family didn't just marry. They didn't simply consummate. They prepared. Rituals that involved 3 days of fasting followed by awakening rites in which the bride's innocence was cut away, literally. The manual speaks of softening the vessel, of unlocking her silence and anointing her with the milk of obedience. There's an illustration of a girl, maybe 15, kneeling in a pentagram, while masked figures, clearly Eldridges, stand above her. One holds a chalice. Another holds a rod wrapped in barbed wire. The rites weren't just perverse. They were repetitive, performed again and again, passed down through the generations. Each new bride was expected to undergo them. Each son was trained not just in reading and hunting, but in preparation. And always the rites ended with blood. A wedding of body and power, a sacrifice of will, pleasure weaponized, pain sanctified. You flip through more pages of the manual. Some are torn, others are stuck together. One has a human tooth tucked in its fold. Your hand is shaking now, and then you see it, a family tree. In the margins are notes when each woman was taken, how many nights it took to open her, and how long before she died. Some entries are scratched out. Others have question marks. One just says, "She screamed in the right tone." Behind you, something moves again. A breath this time. Not yours. And then nothing. Just the wind outside howling like it wants in. You step back from the bed, from the manual, from the past, but it clings. The room is a wound that never closes. The Eldridge legacy is stitched into its walls, and you're beginning to understand this family didn't indulge in sex. They weaponized it, codified it, worshipped it. And tonight, you've only opened the first page. You don't sleep that night. Not because the bed is uncomfortable, it's not, but because every time you close your eyes, you see her. The bride. Her stitched eyes, the roses in her mouth, the carved emblem that still glistens faintly under candlelight. Your ears still ring with the silence of that room. Heavy, dense. The kind of silence that feels earned, as though 1,000 cries had been absorbed into the wood, the walls, the sheets, until all that remained was a hush so deep it presses on your chest like a hand. You try to leave the room, but the door resists. Not stuck, not locked, just reluctant, as if the house itself has grown used to people staying once they've arrived. When you finally push through and step into the hallway, the corridor stretches far longer than you remember. Every step echoes too long, like the floorboards are swallowing your sound and chewing it slowly. You pass portraits again. Their eyes don't follow you, they lead you, urging you forward deeper into the belly of the house. At the end of the hall is a stairwell that spirals down, but halfway along the wall, something catches your eye. A mural, not painted, but scorched into the plaster. A burnt image. The figures are crude but clear. A woman stands in the center, surrounded by cloaked silhouettes. Her arms are spread, her head tilted back, mouth open in what you cannot decide is pleasure or pain. Beneath her feet, flames curl like fingers, and above her, written in Latin, is a phrase, lux per carnem. Light through flesh. You descend the stairs. Each step hums, faintly resonating with something below. You can hear water now, a slow, deliberate dripping. It should be comforting. It's not. The next room is a library, but not the kind filled with dusty old books and forgotten diaries. This is meticulously organized, clean. Shelves stretch from floor to ceiling, ladders glide along iron rails, and the whole place smells faintly of cedar and, copper. You run your fingers along the spines. No titles, just numbers, volumes, and each one bears the Eldridge crest burned into the leather. You pull out one at random. Volume 23. It's not a book. It's a ledger. Each page contains names. Women's names. Dozens, maybe hundreds. First names only followed by dates, locations, and a final column titled Purity Status. The last row has a note scribbled in another hand, black hair, quiet disposition. Compliant by second week. No sedation needed. You pull another volume. And another. It's the same. This isn't a record of lovers or wives. It's a catalog. The Eldridge family documented their victims like livestock. Each woman labeled, processed, archived. There's even a section at the back of one volume marked with crimson ink failures. Their entries are brief, too loud. Bit the wrong son, fought through fourth right. Spilled chalice, and then this one destroyed herself before binding. Bones saved. You close the ledger, breath catching in your throat, and then you hear it, a voice. Not close, not quite whispering either. It feels like it's inside your skull. Low, male, chanting. You can't understand the words, but you feel them. Heavy syllables that weigh down your thoughts. You follow the sound not because you want to, but because you must. Behind a shelf is a hidden door. Typical for a house like this, right? Except this one isn't mechanical or secretive. It's ceremonial. The door is lined with feathers, bones, and dried herbs stitched into the wood like veins. A small vial hangs in the center. Inside it, a curled tongue, human, preserved in brine. You push the door open and descend into darkness. The stone steps spiral downward, damp and echoing. The chanting grows louder, a rhythm now, a pulse. You descend for what feels like forever until the air changes, thicker, like inhaling through cloth. Then you see it. The chamber of initiation, candlelit and circular with a raised stone dais in the center. Symbols are carved into the floor, some geometric, some anatomical. Chains hang from the ceiling. On the walls, crude frescoes show scenes of men and women engaged in acts that defy both physics and consent. The Eldridge sons were trained here. That much is clear from the plaques on the walls. One reads, "Through practice we refine. Through flesh we ascend." Another is more blunt. "To dominate is to cleanse the bloodline." A table sits at the edge of the room. Upon it, tools. Some are surgical, others are clearly not. You see a phallus carved from ivory, barbed and stained. Beside it, a sketch labeled "The Bride's Chisel." It looks like a knife, but the handle is shaped like a pelvis. The blade is etched with notches likely to indicate depth. And then your hand touches parchment. A list. Sun assignments, summer solstice. There are names again. First names. Young girls. Their ages are noted. The boys' Eldridge boys are matched beside them, some as young as 10, others already full-grown. At the bottom, in elegant script, Eldridge blood must never dilute. You drop the list. The air is spinning. This wasn't a family. It was a machine, one designed to preserve its perversions through order, repetition, and holy justification. They truly believed that their sexual rituals were a form of spiritual clarity, a communion with the divine through pain, submission, and blood. You sit for a moment, knees weak. Then you hear something else. Not chanting. A whimper. It's coming from behind the dais. You circle it slowly and find another hidden panel, this one newer, maybe added in the 1800s. You slide it open. Inside is a cell. Small. Too small to stand in. Chains bolt into the walls and you count deep scratches on the floor, hundreds, thousands. The cell isn't occupied now, but it recently was. A cloth bundle sits in the corner. You unwrap it. Inside are children's clothes, freshly folded, and in the lining of the dress, embroidered in thread barely visible under candlelight, is one word: mercy. You don't cry. You can't. The house won't let you. Because you're still not done. Because the ledger goes deeper. And the Eldridges were just getting started. The scent of that underground cell still clings to your skin. Not just mildew or rot, but something sharper like burned sugar and copper. You try to convince yourself it's just the candles, or maybe old blood in the mortar. But somewhere deep inside you know better. The Eldridges didn't just imprison bodies. They distilled pain into memory, soaked it into the walls. And now it's soaking into you. You step back into the chamber of initiation. The chanting has stopped, replaced by a stillness so absolute it buzzes in your ears. The candles flicker, though there's no draft. One by one, they begin to go out. You don't wait for the last. You climb the steps fast, two at a time, back into the library, where the air feels, if not safer, at least more human. You return the ledger to the shelf. Not because you're done with it, but because you can't stand to touch it a second longer. The next room over is smaller. A study, maybe. Thick curtains block out the morning light. The Eldridge family, it seems, feared the sun more than they feared sin. A desk sits at the center, covered in parchment wax seals, and an odd array of feathers, raven, dove, something reptilian. At the center of it all lies a book, bound in skin. You wish you were imagining that part, but you can feel the pores beneath your fingertips. It's softer than leather should be, warmer too. You open it. The handwriting is precise, beautiful, almost sacred. The ink is reddish-brown, and you don't ask what it's made from. The title page reads, Codex Venari, a treatise on the sacred hunt. You turn the page, and what unfolds is a meticulous guide not to hunting animals but people. Women, to be exact. Not kidnapped at random, not taken out of convenience, but selected. Based on criteria both arcane and biological. Hair color, blood type, date of birth. Even horrifyingly gestational background. It details the phases of the moon best suited to abduct women with fertile spirit, and which astrological configurations favor docile transformations. And then you see the names again. More than just a ledger, this time, diagrams of homes, routines, familial lineage. Many of the women were peasants, unrecorded by history. But others were daughters of lesser nobles, governesses. One, chillingly, was a lady-in-waiting to Queen Anne herself. Each hunt was seen as a rite of passage for Eldridge boys. They were required to plan it fully. Select the target. Learn her fears, her patterns, her weaknesses, and then break her down first psychologically, then physically, then sexually. Always in that order, always with ceremony, and always the final act occurred in the Crimson Room. You don't know what that is yet, but your bones go cold just hearing the phrase written down. A note in the margin reads, "Each boy must complete his first crimson rite before age 15 or forfeit his claim to blood." You shut the book, and something whispers behind your ear, "Too late for you now." You spin around, no one there, but the curtain stirs ever so slightly. You step toward it, pull it back. Behind it is a window, but the glass isn't transparent. It's blackened from the inside, scratched, scoured. Something was kept out or in. The frame is carved with dozens of tiny marks. Upon closer inspection, you realize they're tally marks, hundreds of them. Some vertical, some slashed across, some done with such fury the wood is splintered. A calendar of torment. You back away. Too many signs, too much truth. But still, curiosity is stronger than fear. You return to the hallway and notice something you hadn't before. A mirror, tall, gilt frame. But the reflection is wrong. You're in it, yes, but off. Your eyes too wide. Your limbs just slightly out of sync. And behind you, in the reflection only, is a door. You turn, nothing there. You look back into the mirror. The door is still there, slightly ajar now. Candlelight spills from it. You blink, and suddenly you're inside it. You don't remember stepping forward. But now the door creaks shut behind you. The air's thick again this time, not with incense, but with something sweeter. Cloying, like spoiled honey. This is the Crimson Room. The walls are a deep red, not painted, but dyed. You see the uneven blotches up close, how the color seeps down in rivulets. The ceiling is mirrored. The floor is covered in furs and silks, most of them matted and frayed. At the center is a circular bed. Surrounding it are dozens of instruments. Restraints, ropes, implements you don't have names for. Some medical, most not. All intimate. On the far wall is a fresco, like the one you saw near the stairs, but this one is vivid, detailed, and terrifying. It shows a woman splayed across the bed, while masked men perform a rite. One holds her mouth open with a bit gag, while another anoints her forehead with blood. At her feet, a boy, maybe 12, is being guided by an older man's hand toward her exposed body. The caption beneath reads, "The Transference of Hunger." You try to look away, You try to leave, but the door is gone now. The mirror, too, and the candles, each in a skull-shaped holder, flare brighter. Then you hear it. A child's giggle, and then a moan. Not ghostly, not from the past. From the present. From here. You turn slowly. In the mirror above the bed, a scene plays out. You're not in it. But someone is. A woman. Bound. Eyes wide. Screaming soundlessly. And a boy. Dressed in Eldridge red. He looks up at the mirror and his eyes lock with yours. They are your eyes. You stagger back, crashing into a stand that topples, spilling a pile of old garments, nightgowns, gloves, slips, all stained. Beneath them, something heavy. A mask. You lift it. It's carved from bone. The inside is lined with teeth, and suddenly you're not in the room anymore. You're in the hall again. But your hands are still shaking. You've seen the Crimson Room, and now it's seen you. And the Eldridges, they never let go of those they initiate. The air in the hallway is colder now. It clings to your skin, seeping beneath your clothes like invisible hands. The warmth you once knew, the warmth of your own breath, seems absent. You blink slowly, trying to make sense of how you were taken, delivered into the Crimson Room, and then spat back out. You don't remember walking. You barely remember standing. But your feet ache, and the soles of your shoes are sticky. You don't look down. The corridor stretches before you like a mouth opening wide. You recognize none of it anymore. The wood paneling looks the same, the faded paintings still line the walls, but something has changed. The house no longer feels like a place you're exploring. It feels like a consciousness, and you're now inside it. At the far end of the hallway, you see a light. It's faint, golden, flickering. You follow it. As you walk, you pass a grandfather clock. It's been stopped at the same time in every room, 3:17 a.m., even in rooms with no windows, even in rooms with no clocks. Always 3:17, always just before the breaking of night. You reach the door with the light behind it. It's open just a crack. This time you knock. There's no answer. So you push gently, and the door swings open on whispering hinges. It's a nursery, but not a child's nursery, not anymore. There's a crib in the corner, carved from black oak, and a rocking horse whose saddle is cracked open, revealing something fleshy beneath. Dolls line the walls, but none of them have faces, only mouths. Some stitched shut. Others open wide in silent screams. A mobile spins slowly above the crib. Instead of stars, it holds fingers. Tiny ones. Dried. Preserved. And there, pinned to the far wall, is a tapestry. It's embroidered with care, aged by time, and stunningly detailed. It tells a story. You walk closer. Panel by panel, the tale unfolds. A noblewoman, blonde, beautiful, chosen by the Eldridge patriarch Thaddeus himself. She is not stolen. She is invited. Promised power, legacy, immortality of name. She marries into the family willingly. But what she does not know, what no one tells her, is that the firstborn child of every Eldridge bride is not raised. It is offered. The tapestry shows her giving birth. Then screaming, as the midwife and Eldridge aunt, masked in white, takes the infant to a chapel in the woods. There, beneath a full moon, the child is laid on a stone altar. Not sacrificed, not killed, but altered. Something is poured into its mouth, something dark and shimmering. The next panel shows the child back in the nursery, cradled-fed, dressed in fine silks, but its eyes glow faintly, and its shadow falls in the wrong direction. The final panel is simply this: the woman years later, chained to the crib, suckling the grown child who now towers over her, still an infant in face but wrong in body. Inhuman, eternal. The Eldridge air. You stagger back from the tapestry, and then you hear it. From the crib. A wet sound, like something shifting in soup. You step closer. The crib is empty, but the blanket is still warm, and stitched across its corner in gold thread are the words, "He who feeds will reign." On the wall beside the crib is a portrait. At first it looks like a traditional oil painting of a child, but when you study it longer, the proportions don't add up. The arms are too long, the fingers too many, the eyes. There are no pupils, just darkness stretching inward forever. Beneath the portrait, a brass plate reads, "Lord Elias Eldridge, born 1604, still among us." You back out of the room slowly, and the mobile stops spinning. You close the door, but it doesn't latch. You don't care. You just want to get away from that thing, whatever it was, wherever it went. The next hallway is narrower. You duck slightly to fit. The ceilings have lowered. The wallpaper is peeling, revealing writing beneath. Not paint, not pencil. Carvings. Dozens, hundreds, fingernail deep. They repeat one phrase over and over. He comes again on the night of the third hush. It means nothing, and yet everything. At the end of this hallway is a locked iron gate. You hesitate, then reach for the latch, and it opens easily. No resistance, as if it wants you to come inside. It leads to a corridor lined with glass cases. You pause, and then you realize what's inside. Each case holds a dress, not costumes, not garments. Wedding dresses. 15 of them, each labeled with a name. Mercy Elspeth, Clara Isolde Ruth, Madeline Sabine Judith, Lillian Honor Agnes Blythe, Tansy Hope Silence. Each one preserved perfectly. Each one stained at the hem with a different shade of red. Each has a note tucked into the bodice. You read just one she danced without chains by the second night. We sang for her. She screamed on the third as is custom. May her blood bless the house. The dress smells like lavender and rust. You keep walking. You don't dare stop again. At the end of the gallery is a small set of stairs. Spiral, stone, no railing. You descend slowly, the air growing colder with each step, until at last you reach a door of wrought iron and glass. Behind it, candlelight laughter and the faintest sound of strings. Music, waltz music. You brace yourself and open the door. The ballroom spreads out before you. The chandeliers glow dimly. The floor is polished to a mirror. At first glance, it's empty. Then slowly, figures emerge, dancing. Dozens of couples. But they're not alive. You can see the gray flesh, the stitched mouths, the rotted lace and cracked velvet. And yet, they dance so slowly, so sadly, their movements perfectly rehearsed. In the center, a throne. empty. But beside it, standing, hands folded, eyes sharp, dressed in crimson, a woman, tall, pale, dressed like a bride. But she's no victim. She sees you, smiles, and whispers though the room is vast. The groom returns, and just like that you realize you were never a guest here. You were always part of the script. And the Eldridge wedding night, it hasn't ended. It's waiting. The ballroom stretches wider than it should. You take a step forward, and the floor doesn't creak. It sighs as though exhaling centuries of dust and grief just for you. The dancers spin on slow and solemn, their decaying forms gliding over the marble like ghosts, desperate to remember their steps. Some still wear veils, others just bones wrapped in satin. But all of them are paired, except you. And the woman in crimson. She watches you, unmoving arms folded across her waist, like a priestess in a cathedral of rot. Her dress, bright blood red, cascades to the floor in waves of silk. It's stitched with symbols you recognize from the Codex Venari. Her hair, black as crow's wings, is pinned in intricate loops held together by bone clasps. But it's her eyes that paralyze you. Not glowing, not monstrous, just human, too human. Like she's alive in a way nothing else in this house is. She gestures. Once. And without thinking, you walk toward her. Not out of obedience, not out of fear, but because the moment she lifts her hand, your limbs forget how to refuse. You stop 2 paces away. Her perfume hits you, jasmine smoke and something metallic. Not blood. Iron. Like old keys. She speaks softly, and the music stops instantly. Dead silence. Only her voice remains. You came late, she says. We've been waiting. You try to respond. Your throat is dry. Your voice doesn't come. She tilts her head. You don't remember your place yet, do you? That's all right. The blood knows before the mind does. She lifts one finger and touches the center of your chest. Heat floods you, violent and sudden. Images flicker behind your eyes. A candle-lit chapel. Children weeping behind lace veils. Screams muffled by silk. A boy your face but younger kneeling before a girl, trembling naked, afraid. The scene vanishes. You stagger back. She smiles. I'm called the archivist, she says. But once I was bride number 7. Sabine. Do you remember me? You don't. She sees the confusion. You were the 4th born of Benedict Eldridge. You made it to your first binding before the blood took you. You fought. We all did. But some of us stayed behind to keep the rooms warm. She turns gestures to the dancers. All of them fought once. Now they only dance. You look again. The dancers are twitching now. Subtle spasms. Like marionettes whose strings have tangled. One pair collapses mid-spin. Neither reacts. They simply writhe until they can stand again. Sabine, or the archivist, continues, the rites were never meant to end. That's the thing none of them understood. It wasn't about climax. It was about repetition. Every act, every ritual, every violation meant to stretch through generations, eternity by accumulation. She walks past you slowly. Her fingers trail along your shoulder. You came here because the blood called. You dreamed it. You heard the laughter in the walls. You saw her the bride, the first one, the only one who never screamed. You remember her now, the woman in the bed, the dried roses, the word bride carved into her chest. Sabine's voice softens. Her name was Silence. She was my mother. She gave the family its most sacred right, the right of stillness. She steps in front of you again, holds out her hand. Come. Let me show you what it means to remember. You take her hand, not because you want to, because you must. The ballroom dissolves. You're elsewhere. A corridor dimly lit, candles guttering, the scent of warm milk and blood and lavender. The walls are lined with mirrors, except the reflections are all wrong. They don't show your face. They show versions of you. In each you wear different clothes, speak different tongues. One is in velvet mouth smeared with blood. One is chained. One wears a crown of antlers. One is not human. Sabine leads you to the final mirror. This is who you were before she whispers. The one who broke the line. The reflection isn't horrifying. It's regal. You look older, stronger, tired. You wear ceremonial robes deep crimson, and in your hands you hold a dagger with two blades crossing each other. Your face bears ritual scars. Your chest is bare. Across your heart is the same symbol carved into Silence's corpse, twin serpents wrapped around a torch. But your eyes, they burn with remorse. You realize something then. You weren't just a participant in the Eldridge horrors. You were the traitor, the one who tried to end it. Sabine watches the realization dawn across your face. Yes, she says. You sealed the rites, buried the manual, poisoned the last chalice. And then, you disappeared. We thought you were dead. We hoped you were dead. She steps back, but blood remembers, and the rites are patient. Now you've returned, and the house hungers. The mirror cracks. Shards rain down, but there's no sound. Only silence. Sabine disappears, and you're back in the ballroom. But now you're not alone. The throne is no longer empty. A figure sits there, tall, robed, masked. Not bone this time, but gold, carved into a frozen expression of ecstasy. In his hands the Codex Venari. He opens it and speaks a name. Yours, but not your current name, your blood name, the name you wore when the rites were last active. He stands, and the dancers stop mid-spin. Every masked face turns to you, and you understand. The final rite hasn't been performed in centuries. And now that you've returned, you're not the guest. You're the officiant. You want to run. Every nerve in your body screams it. Every instinct. Every cell. Every ancestor in your blood whispering from their dusty graves. Get out. But your feet stay planted. The figure on the throne closes the Codex Venari and places it gently on the armrest, like a priest closing scripture. His golden mask gleams under the flickering chandelier. He doesn't move quickly. He doesn't need to. Everyone else does that for him. The dancers, still frozen mid-twirl, begin to pivot toward you one by one. Their eyes glow faintly now, bluish like moonlit fog, but not with life. With obedience. Then he speaks. You expect Latin, some guttural, unearthly chant, or even a growl. But it's a whisper, soft, British, aristocratic. You remember nothing he says, and yet you found your way back. That is the proof. He steps down from the dais, and as his boots strike the polished floor, the surface rattles. Not from weight, from reverence. The rites lapsed. The family scattered. But the codex remained. So did the hunger. We slept, yes, but never died. And now the blood has come home. You open your mouth to speak, to deny, to beg. You're not sure which, but no sound comes, because something else is happening now. Your skin itches, your chest burns. You glance down and realize that your shirt is soaked with sweat. And not just that. Something darker is bleeding through. A shape. 2 serpents around a torch. The Eldridge seal branding itself into your flesh. You scream, but the sound never reaches the room, because this room has its own rules. The figure in gold watches unmoved. It remembers you, he says calmly. It reclaims what was once sworn. Then he gestures to the far wall, and it opens. No hinges, no mechanics. The stone simply melts away. Behind it, a spiral staircase made of blackened bone. Downward, always downward. He turns to you, extends his hand. The rites must resume, he says, and you, bloodkeeper, must lead. You don't move, so he waits. That's the worst part. He waits like someone who's never been told no, and somehow you take the step. You don't know why. Not out of obedience, not even out of fear. Out of something worse, familiarity. The stairs are colder than ice. Each step emits a groan like vertebrae grinding together. There's no torchlight now, but the gold-masked figure produces a lantern. A dim red glow, not flame, more like a womb's heat. As you descend, your memories begin to twitch. Fragments. You standing in a chamber, a girl sobbing on an altar. A chalice in your hand. You hesitating. The others chanting. You shaking. Her begging. You throwing the chalice against the wall. Then the pain. Then the branding. Then darkness. And now, rebirth. The stairs end at a vault door, carved with symbols from every dark language known and unknown, Enochian runes, twisted Georgian script, and markings that look like scratches made by claws and teeth. The gold-masked man places his palm against it. Nothing happens. Then you notice he's missing 2 fingers. He lowers his hand and nods at you. The message is clear. It won't open for him. Only you. The blood. You step forward. Your hand trembles, but as it touches the door, a jolt shoots through you, not pain, but recognition. The door groans, cracks bloom across its face like frost on glass, and then silently it opens. Inside is a circular chamber. Black walls, no ceiling, just void. In the center, a stone table. On it, a body. No, not a body, a vessel. She lies still naked, but covered in markings. Some fresh, some faded. Symbols carved into her skin like calligraphy. Her chest rises slowly. She's alive, but her eyes don't move. She's waiting. For you. The gold-masked man speaks again. Every 50 years, a vessel is prepared, preserved. Her soul bound in the hour of death. Her body kept in a state of half-life. a waiting bride. You want to look away. You can't. This is Amaranth. She was your last, before the betrayal. She has not moved in 4 centuries, yet her body still sings the rite of binding. You whisper, finally, a voice finds you. Why me? The mask tilts. You were always the chosen one. You knew the rites. You altered them, nearly destroyed them. But that knowledge is power, and power must always return home. You take another step toward the table. Amaranth's lips are moving now. You lean in. She whispers one word, run. You stumble back, eyes wide. But the gold figure is behind you now, close. His mask at your ear. Even in sleep, they resist. That is the cost of breeding power from pain. You turn shove past him, but the door has sealed. No stairs, no light, no way back. And Amaranth's body begins to levitate. Ribbons of blood float around her, forming symbols mid-air. The room shakes, and the mask is gone. The man's face exposed. And it's your face. Older, weathered, etched with grief. You left us unfinished, he says. So now we begin again. But this time, we go all the way. Your body pulses. The mark on your chest is glowing, and Amaranth is weeping blood. The final rite is beginning, and this time you're not the boy on the altar. You're the priest. The air inside the vault hums. It's not a sound you hear exactly. It's one you feel in your teeth, your bones, your blood. The room is alive, not metaphorically, not atmospherically. The black stone walls pulse ever so slightly, as though they're breathing in tandem with Amaranth's slow, suspended rhythm. She floats inches above the altar, her limbs limp, but her spine arched unnaturally, as though pulled by unseen hooks threaded beneath her ribs. Her mouth is open, but no sound escapes. Just the slow drip of blood from her eyes, from the corners of her lips, from the tiny glyphs carved into her thighs and breasts and wrists. You can't look away, because she's weeping for you, and because you remember now. You remember everything. The first time they placed a blade in your hand. You were 9. The girl was 12. Her name was Clara, and she was the daughter of a blacksmith brought to the manor under the pretense of servitude. You'd been told she'd volunteered, that she understood her purpose. She hadn't. She screamed the entire time. But not when you cut her. No, her silence began the moment you hesitated. The others took over. You watched. And that night they sewed the family seal into your chest with hot iron thread. You remember each binding after that. Isolde, whose heart stopped mid-rite. Madeline, who bit off her own tongue. Judith, who went mad and began writing messages in her own feces, messages you secretly read and remembered long after they locked her in the echo cellar. And then, Amaranth. You loved her. You were never supposed to. She came from a family of exiled Venetian witches. Her blood was considered potent, sacred, volatile. She was meant to be your perfect vessel. But she spoke to you, listened, told you stories, old spells, charms for protection, charms for forgetting. She taught you how to hide things, secrets in the body, memories in the breath. And the night of her rite, you tried to kill her. You tried to end her so they couldn't use her. But the blade refused to cut. She simply looked up at you and whispered, "I forgive you." They bound her anyway. And you ran. You tried to burn the codex. You poisoned the vault. You fled to the marshes, cursed your own name, tried to bury it all. And now, centuries later, you're here again. And the room won't let you go. The other you, the one with your face aged, scarred, glowing with the old rites, he stands beside Amaranth's floating body. He reaches into the folds of his robe and produces a bowl carved from a human pelvis. He dips his fingers into it. Blood. Thick, black, ancient. He paints the first sigil on her chest. Then he turns to you. You know what happens next, he says. It cannot be completed without you. You marked her. You bound her. Only you can open her fully. You fall to your knees. I didn't mean to, you whisper. He tilts his head. No one ever does. He walks to you, kneels down, and places the bowl in your hands. It's warm. It vibrates. I was you once, he says softly. You broke the line, but then you came back. And now there is no more choice. Only conclusion. The bowl shudders. You look into it and see not blood. You see faces. The girls. Every one. Clara. Madeline. Judith. Silence. Elspeth. Mercy. Hope. Even Sabine the archivist. All staring up at you. Silent. Judging. Forgiving. Waiting. You scream and throw the bowl across the vault. It hits the far wall, shatters not into pieces, but into ash, as though it had already been dead for centuries. The other you doesn't react, just sighs. You always did that. Even in the original life. He steps back. Very well. But she still needs a vessel. He lifts a curved dagger from the altar's edge and walks toward you. I can carve it into you again. Like before. This time deeper. Maybe then you'll remember who you serve. He raises the blade. But then Amaranth speaks. Not with words, with force. The walls scream. The vault trembles. The sigils around her body ignite in flame, not red, but white-hot, burning away their shape, as if the stone itself rejects them. She rises higher, her eyes open wide, and she begins to chant, not in Latin, not in English, not even in human syllables. It's the language of undoing. Your other self stumbles, the dagger falls from his hand, and Amaranth turns her gaze on you, and this time her voice fills the vault. You can still end it, but only if you finish what you began. Not their right, yours. The air shatters like glass. You're back at the altar, the dagger in your hand. Amaranth's body, still floating, begins to fracture. Her form flickers young and old whole in hollow flesh and ash. And you realize to free her, you must complete the rite, but not the one they wrote. Yours. The one where the blade goes into you. You raise the dagger. The other you screams, lunges. Too late. The blade plunges into your chest, right over the Eldridge seal, and the room erupts. The altar splits in half. The walls collapse inward. The bone staircase liquefies. Amaranth falls into your arms. Not floating. Alive. Breathing. Bleeding. Real. You hold her as the world shakes and the vault caves in around you. And just before everything turns to darkness, you hear one voice. Sabine's. Soft, warm, final. Thank you. And then darkness. But not the kind that comes from lack of light. This is weight, not absence. A void that presses against your skin, invades your lungs, fills your mouth like wet cloth. You can't see, you can't move, and for a long, agonizing moment, you wonder if this is death. But then a sound. Wet breathing. Not yours. Close. Too close. Then drip, drip, drip. Stone beneath you, cold and slick. The coppery scent of blood clings to your nostrils like smoke. You blink, and slowly the black recedes. You're lying on your side, half crushed beneath the splintered remnants of the altar. The dagger is gone, but the wound is not. Your chest throbs not with pain, but with heat. That same heat from the branding centuries ago. Except now it doesn't burn. It beats. Like a second heart. You're alive. But so is something else. You shift, and there she is, Amaranth, curled beside you, coughing weakly. Blood on her lips, but her eyes are open. Her irises are glassy, almost crystalline now, and as she looks at you, something passes between you both. Not words, not thoughts, but recognition. You pull her up slowly. Her body is trembling, her skin hot to the touch, but she doesn't resist. The vault has changed. The walls are no longer black and smooth. They've crumbled into raw stone, fractured and bleeding light. A crack splits the ceiling, revealing stars above. Real stars. Not illusions, not painted symbols. Night sky. You've gone deeper than the manor's foundations. You're beneath the land itself, beneath history. Amaranth tries to speak, but her voice is hoarse. You reach for water, there is none. Instead, you tear a strip from your sleeve and press it to her lips. She sucks the moisture gratefully, then chokes out a single word, most. You nod. You don't ask what she means, because part of you already knows. You haven't destroyed the rites. You've only unbound them, and unbinding is just the beginning of true release. A new tunnel stretches ahead, half-flooded walls veined with roots and glowing fungus. You help Amaranth to her feet, and together you walk. Slowly, unsteadily. The silence between you is heavy but not oppressive. There is meaning in it now, not trauma, not ritual, just existence. After a while, she speaks again, her voice steadier. They kept me in a blood sleep, half alive, trapped between this world, the other. You glance at her. The other, you ask. She nods. You know it. You've touched it. Every Eldridge rite was a key. Every violation a knock on that door. It's not just darkness on the other side. It's something else. Something waiting. You stop walking. You mean a demon? She smiles faintly. No. Older. Less dramatic. Then her smile fades. They called it the root. The name hits you in a place beyond memory, something deeper than thought. You've heard it before, not as a word, but as a feeling, a low hum at the edges of every rite, the breath beneath every chant, the root, the source of the family's power, Not God, not Satan. Something underground, something growing. She continues. It doesn't speak, doesn't want worship. Just experience. It feeds on repetition, on patterns, on the same act performed again and again until it becomes reality. That's why the rites were so important. Not just for control, but to anchor the root here. You feel sick, all that pain, all those girls, all those nights just to feed that amaranth nods. And you were the heir who broke the chain, the first to deviate, the first to try something different. That act alone, it weakened the root. It hated you for it. You stop again. The tunnel ahead forks left into darkness, right into ain't golden light. You choose the right, because you've had enough darkness for lifetimes. You pass roots growing into the walls, now real roots, but with pulses. They throb like veins. As you pass, they retreat into the stone, afraid of you. Amaranth's voice drops to a whisper. They'll come for us soon. You glance at her, the family's dead. She shakes her head. No. Not all. Not ever. The rites ensured that. There are still echoes, those who sleep in the rooms above. Some were never fully human again, and some were never human to begin with. You remember Sabine. You remember the faceless dancers in the ballroom. You remember the other you, the mirror version. And you shudder. How do we stop them? Amaranth pauses, then says something you never wanted to hear. We go to the root. You turn to her. No. We just escaped it. She shakes her head, eyes serious now. You opened the vault. You bled into the altar. You finished the rite. But you did it without obedience. That's never happened before. And now the root is vulnerable. She turns back to the path. If we walk away now, the next child who dreams in red will wake in that house. The next girl will bleed. The next boy will cut. Unless you go back down. One last time. But this time with me. You say nothing, because you understand. You weren't just the heir. You weren't just the priest. You were the flaw. The crack in the ceremony. The one who bled for love, not power. And the root remembers. You keep walking. The tunnel narrows again, curving downward toward a distant rumble. Water, wind, number breath. The root is alive, and it knows you're coming. You squeeze Amaranth's hand. She squeezes back. No more rites. No more brides. No more blood-soaked beds. This is no longer a story of submission. It's a story of ending. And you are the last chapter. The tunnel descends in tighter spirals, now corkscrewing through layers of stone that no longer look like natural earth. You pass veins of bone, pockets of dried skin stretched taut over rock. The deeper you go, the more the walls seem to breathe, not just pulsing, but expanding and contracting like lungs that never stop gasping. The air thickens, not with heat, but with memory. Not yours, theirs. A girl weeping as her ankles are bound. A boy swallowing bile as he lifts a blade. A mother smiling with dead eyes as her child is led away. You feel it all. Taste it. Amaranth walks ahead of you now. Her bare feet leave faint prints on the stone glowing momentarily before fading. She's changed since the ritual broke. Her spine straighter, her eyes colder, her voice quieter but heavier with weight like every word costs something. At last, the tunnel opens. You step into a vast cavern, and there it is, the root. It is not a tree, not in the way forests know them. No bark, no branches, no crown reaching for sun. It is a mass. A twisting, gnarled cluster of tendrils and coils, slick and black, some thin as veins, others thick as towers. It stretches up and down and across itself, rooted into the ceiling, coiling through cracks in the earth, wrapped around human bones like ivy. At its center is an eye, closed, yet watching. And around it, the Eldridge faithful. Dozens of them. Still, silent, kneeling, not moving, not blinking. You don't recognize their faces, but you know them. In the blood, in the mirror, in the dream. The rites didn't just preserve the family. They planted it. Each act of violence, each night of sacred cruelty, each page in the codex, another seed sunk deep into the world's flesh. And now this is the tree. It groans. It knows you're here. Amaranth steps beside you, eyes fixed on the central eye. There's still time, she whispers. You marked it. You broke the pattern. That's why it hasn't awakened yet. You swallow hard. What happens if it opens? She turns to you. It becomes real. The air vibrates. One of the kneeling faithful begins to tremble. His jaw unhinges literally. Bone tears from skin. A scream emerges, but it's wordless, directionless, like a pressure valve snapping. Then he collapses. Dead. Or something worse. The root shudders. The eye twitches. You both flinch. Amaranth reaches into her dress and pulls out something wrapped in silk. You recognize the shape instantly. The double-bladed dagger. But not the same one. This one glows faintly at the hilt. Etched with glyphs not from the codex, but from something older. She places it in your hands. You know what to do, you don't. Not exactly. But your hands close around the handle like they've been waiting centuries to remember. The root groans again. Another faithful screams, his body rising off the ground, eyes bulging, fingers snapping backward like broken branches. Then silence. Then collapse. The eye opens a sliver. And suddenly you see everything. Not with your eyes, but in your bones. You see the first rite performed not in a manor, but in a cave long before language. A woman torn open, not for pleasure, but for pattern. You see the codex penned in blood from a sacrificed twin. You see the Eldridge name whispered into noble ears, spreading like a curse across Europe. And you see yourself again and again, born, marked, prepared, branded, but always, always hesitating, always trembling at the threshold of cruelty. The eye sees it too, and it hates you for it. It sees the flaw in you, not weakness, but empathy. And now, it tries to erase it. The eye opens wider, and your mind floods with temptation. Visions not of torture, but of comfort. A warm bed. A voice whispering your name lovingly. A child running to embrace you. laughter, peace. All of it lies. The root doesn't punish with pain. It seduces with relief. That's how the rites began, not as violence, but as escape. But Amaranth's voice pierces through, "Don't trust it." That's how it grows. You raise the dagger, your hands shake, you step forward, and the root lashes out. A tendril strikes the ground beside you, splintering stone. Another coils toward Amaranth, but she screams a wordless force that blasts it back. The faithful begin to stir. The trance is breaking. You run. You reach the center. The root's eye is wide now, blinding and black and endless. You lift the blade high, and the root speaks. No language, no voice. Just the oldest instinct: if you end me, you end yourself. You falter, because you know it's not lying. The rites, the patterns, the name Eldridge, they're all in you. You are made of them. You can't sever the root without severing your own blood. But then Amaranth's hand closes over yours. Steady. And she whispers, "Then let it end with us." Together you drive the dagger into the eye. There is no scream, only light. And then nothing. Nothing. Not silence, not darkness, just nothing. You float in it. Or maybe you're falling. Or maybe you've become so still that even gravity doesn't know where to place you. There's no sound, no breath, no body. For a brief, impossible moment, you don't even exist, not as flesh, not as memory. Only the echo of a decision remains. Then a heartbeat, not yours, hers. The pulse ripples through the void like a drop in ink. Then another, faster now, steady, steady. You feel her first Amaranth before you see anything. Her presence, warm and steady, anchors you in this unplace. And slowly, like waking up underwater, sensation begins to return. First breath, then skin, then light. You open your eyes. You are no longer in the cavern. You're lying on a stone floor, smooth and damp, the air thick with moss and something almost sweet. Around you, the root is gone, not shattered, not burned, withered. Where once there was an eye, a pulse, a mouth of endless hunger, now there is only a hollow, an empty basin in the ground, ringed with ash and brittle tendrils like the molted shell of a dead insect. The faithful are gone, not corpses vanished. Their kneeling places remain shadows scorched into the ground, like memories too stubborn to leave completely. Amaranth is beside you, her hair damp with sweat, her face pale but alive. She breathes. She blinks. She whispers your name, your real name. Not the blood name, not the title. You remember it now, and you cry. Because it was yours before the rites, before the manor, before Thaddeus Eldridge carved obedience into your skin. You sit up slowly. Everything aches. But it's the ache of release, not defeat. Amaranth helps you to your feet. Together you stand in the remains of what bound your family for centuries. And for a long sacred moment, you say nothing. There is no need. You've ended a lineage not just of people, but of patterns, of repetition, violation, inheritance. You walk through the cavern now brittle and hushed. The bones embedded in the walls have turned to dust. The symbols etched into the stone now bleed water instead of blood, clear, cold, pure. Fungal light dims gently as you pass, like it no longer needs to burn against the dark. Eventually you reach the tunnel again. Not the tight, twisting one. A new one. Straight. Dry. Clean. You step into it. The light behind you fades, and ahead you hear wind. Real wind. Then bird song and laughter. You don't speak of what you lost. Not yet. You both know it will take lifetimes to understand what was taken from you. From the girls, from the boys, from the broken lineage of victims turned perpetrators turned ghosts. But you walk. Each step forward now is your own. The path rises gently. You begin to smell fresh dirt, wet leaves, the crispness of dawn. And then light. Not candlelight. Sunlight. It blinds you for a moment. You shield your eyes, but you keep walking. You emerge into a clearing. The forest is still. Above you, birds circle lazily in the morning sky. Amaranth steps beside you, her face bathed in gold. She says nothing. You don't need her to, because here now you are no longer a vessel, no longer an heir, no longer a keeper of rights. You are a survivor, and the house is gone. You turn to look back. Where Eldridge Manor once stood, no stone remains. Just trees. Just silence. Just peace. But deep beneath the soil, you know something still breathes. A whisper of the root. A flicker of memory. You hope no one finds it again. But if they do, you'll be waiting. And this time you won't hesitate. The forest does not ask questions. It only watches. You and Amaranth walk side by side, your feet pressing into damp leaves and moss, the smell of pine heavy in the air. Somewhere far above, a hawk cries out sharp and brief, and its echo folds into the rustling of the trees. There's no path ahead, not really, but that doesn't stop you. For once, you don't need directions. You don't need a map. You just need to keep moving away from what was. But the past does not let go easily. As the sun begins to rise higher, warming the forest floor, your shadow stretches long behind you. And there, in the outline of your silhouette, you see it again. The serpents. 2 of them twined around a flickering torch. The Eldridge seal. Branded not in skin anymore, but in memory. You blink, and it's gone. But your chest still aches. Amaranth notices. She doesn't speak, just places her hand gently on your arm. That's all it takes. You remember what she told you before, that the rites didn't just call on some external god. The root wasn't an invader. It was an outgrowth of human desire. The hunger for power, repetition, control. It fed on obedience, yes. But more than that, it thrived on forgetting. Every victim forced to smile. Every boy trained to cut and not ask why. Every woman praised for her stillness. The root did not just grow beneath the manor. It grew inside the people who let it continue. You stop walking, because that thought terrifies you. You weren't just part of a cursed family. You were one of its pillars. And even if you ran, even if you buried the codex, even if you plunged a dagger into the root's eye, you can never be certain that some seed of it doesn't still sleep inside you. You turn to Amaranth. I need to know, you say quietly. Is it really gone? She doesn't answer right away. She crouches, touches the soil, lifts a pinch of it to her nose, sniffs, then lets it fall. Nothing grows in poisoned earth, she says softly. But if the soil is patient, She doesn't finish the sentence. She doesn't need to. You both know the truth. The rites are broken. The root is dead. But the memory lives. And that means so does the risk. You keep walking. Eventually you find a creek, cold, clear, winding through the underbrush like a silver ribbon. Without a word, you and Amaranth kneel and wash your hands, your faces, your wounds. The blood runs off your fingers like ink. And then something floats up, a scrap of fabric, linen, delicate embroidery, red thread. You know it instantly. A bride's veil. Your breath catches. You pull it from the water slowly. It's old, stained, but intact. The initials are still visible, stitched in tiny cursive S.E. Sabine Eldridge. Amaranth leans over your shoulder. She frowns. I burned this, she whispers. The night I tried to leave, I threw it in the hearth. I watched it turn to ash. But here it is. You both stare. Then she reaches out and takes it from your hands, wrings it dry, folds it, and tucks it into her dress. Then it followed us, she says, or was never truly gone. You want to ask what she means, but the wind shifts suddenly. The birds fall silent, and for a brief moment the forest feels too quiet, like it's holding its breath. You stand. You scan the trees. No movement. No figures. But there far in the distance a flicker. A light. A house. No. Not the house, not the manor. This one is small, thatched, modern, out of place, but familiar. You start walking. Amaranth follows. The path narrows, hedged in now with tall grass and thin birch trees. The ground crunches underfoot. Not just leaves, charcoal, the remnants of fire. And then you reach the clearing. The house is real. Windows unbroken. Door slightly ajar. There's a mailbox out front. No name. You step onto the porch. Amaranth says nothing, but you know what she's thinking. This wasn't here before. Not in the world you remember. You push the door open. The air inside smells of sage lavender and old wood. Dust dances in golden beams of light filtering through half-closed blinds. There's a table in the center of the room. On it, a leather-bound journal, a red ribbon tied around it. No lock, no seal. You open it. The first page reads, I am the last witness of the rites of Eldridge. And this is what I remember. You flip the page. It's your handwriting. You don't remember writing it. But every word bleeds with truth. Amaranth steps beside you. She places a hand on the table. Maybe that's what this place is, she says. A resting place for the memory. Not to be repeated. Not to be fed. But to be watched. You nod slowly. Because even after everything you destroyed, the story still wants to be told. The journal is heavier than it should be. It pulls at your arms as you lift it, as though the weight of its contents isn't paper and ink, but centuries of silence clawing to the surface. Each page is filled not with the ornate scrawl of ritual, but with your own hand. Uneven, shaky, rushed in some places, gentle in others, as if parts of you were resisting the act of remembering, and other parts were begging for it. You scan a few entries at random. She didn't cry, not even at the binding. Just looked at me with that awful, knowing smile. Judith asked for her mother before the second rite. I told her she would see her after. That was a lie. I think she knew. Amaranth showed me a flower that grew between stones even in winter. She called it witch's mercy. She said it only bloomed where something sacred had died. You close the book. The front door is still open behind you. A breeze blows in, stirring the pages. You glance at Amaranth. She's walking slowly through the room, brushing her fingers along shelves, windowsills, picture frames. Everything untouched, everything waiting. She's not looking for threats. She's looking for proof. This isn't memory, she says finally. This place, it's not a dream. You nod. No, it's a record. She turns, or a warning. Outside, the wind shifts again. You walk to the window and peer out into the clearing. You half expect to see the forest gone, the manor risen again in its place, gleaming with fresh blood, brides lining the balcony, serpents coiling in the stone. But it's still gone. Grass and trees and sunlight. And something else. A boy, standing at the edge of the trees, pale, watching, no older than 10. He's wearing a red coat. You know that coat. You wore it once. He doesn't move, just stands there, waiting. Then he tilts his head and vanishes into the trees. You're at the door in seconds, sprinting into the clearing, Amaranth behind you. The boy is gone, but the air still crackles with his presence. You reach the place where he stood. There, pressed into the grass, are footprints. Small, bare, still warm. Amaranth kneels beside them, brushing her fingers over the impression. Then she looks up at you. It's starting again. You shake your head, no. We ended it. Did we? You remember what the root told you just before the blade struck? If you end me, you end yourself. And now you wonder if maybe something else took your place. A new version, a new bloodline. A child born not from the rites of Eldridge, but from the trauma they left behind. Unanchored, unbranded, but still touched. You return to the house. You open the journal again and turn to the very last page. There, written in a hand that's not quite yours, but not unfamiliar, is a single sentence Soil remembers. You look at Amaranth, and she answers the question before you ask it. Yes, we stopped the rites. We destroyed the house, but we didn't cleanse the ground. You both sit. The silence grows. Then she says, "We should burn this place too." You nod, but you hesitate. Because something in you, something old, something rotten, wants to keep the journal, wants to leave behind a map, a path, a pattern. You hear the roots whisper again, repetition is survival. But then you see Amaranth watching you, not accusing, just waiting. So you stand, take the journal, step outside, and toss it into the fire pit beside the house. Amaranth strikes a match. The flame catches, and the book curls in on itself. Words blacken, ink boils, pages twist into ash. The fire crackles like bones, snapping one last time. You wait until the last page is gone, until there's nothing left but dust. Then Amaranth turns to you and says, "Let's go, you don't ask where." There's no need, because this time you're not running from anything, and you're not returning. You're just walking forward, through the forest, through the light, with the root dead. and the memory finally laid to rest. You walk for hours, maybe more, through the trees, across muddy paths and old riverbeds under archways of mossy stone and tangled limbs. The sky is still bright, though you swear the sun never moves. There's a strange timelessness to this forest, like it exists just slightly outside the rest of the world. You glance at Amaranth every so often. She doesn't speak, but her shoulders are lighter now, no longer burdened by the weight of centuries. Her eyes, though tired, are no longer haunted. Her face, once hollowed by ritual and suffering, is softened by something you dare to hope is peace. Eventually, the woods thin. You emerge into a field, a wide stretch of wildflowers and tall, golden grass. Wind ripples across it in slow, deliberate waves, like the land is breathing a sigh of relief. There are no buildings here, no statues, no remnants of the Eldridge name, just color and open sky. For the first time in what feels like lifetimes, you smile. But the moment doesn't last. Because memory, as you've learned, has a way of lingering, especially when it was carved into flesh. As you cross the field, your foot strikes something. You glance down. A small stone marker, weathered, half sunken. At first you think it's just another piece of forgotten land, until you kneel and brush away the grass. It's engraved. One word. Mercy. Amaranth sees it too. She kneels beside you, runs her fingers over the letters. "Do you remember her?" she asks softly. You nod, though the image is hazy. A girl with soft eyes, braided hair, hands that trembled too much when pouring tea. One of the early ones, one of the first to die quietly. She never screamed, Amaranth says. Not even when they... She doesn't finish. She doesn't have to. You both know what happened in the East Wing, in the hidden room with the iron door and the black veils. You both know that Mercy wasn't just her name. It was what she asked for and never received. You sit in silence for a while. The marker is small, almost humble, a secret grave in a forgotten field. But there are others. You find them slowly. Judith, Elspeth, Ruth, scattered like seeds. A trail of memory buried beneath the grass. Each name you find pulls at you like a hook in the gut. Each one reminds you that the rites may have ended, but their victims never got the chance to walk away. They didn't survive. They didn't burn journals or plunge knives into the flesh of gods. They were sacrificed, and you were there. You rise your hands shaking. We need to mark them, all you say. Properly. Amaranth doesn't answer. She's already started. She's gathered stones, carved names with a small blade she keeps tucked into her belt. Her hands are steady. Her face is calm. You join her. And for the rest of the day, that's all you do. You build a graveyard. Not a monument, not a shrine, a reckoning. Stone by stone, name by name. You mark every one you can remember, even those whose names you never learned. The first bride, the silent twin, the unmarked sister. Each gets a stone. Each gets a place. As dusk falls, you and Amaranth light a small fire at the center of the field. No chants, no rites, no blood. Just silence, and breath, and the soft, warm wind. You speak no prayers. You make no promises. You simply remember. because that's what the root wanted you to forget. That's how it fed on erasure, on repetition without reflection, on ceremony without mourning. So tonight, you mourn, quietly, together. And as night falls, you see something extraordinary. The wind shifts, the grass bends, and every marker, every grave begins to glow. Not bright, just enough, just softly, like lanterns guiding someone home. Amaranth's voice is barely above a whisper. They're free now. You nod, and for the first time you believe it. But deep in your bones you also know memory is never final, and peace is never permanent. Not when it was bought with so much pain. Still, you take her hand. You sit beside the fire. And for a moment, just a moment, you let yourself believe in an ending. Dawn. The fire has died to embers, but you and Amaranth haven't moved. Not out of exhaustion, though your bodies ache. Your mind's frayed like the edges of old silk, but because leaving would mean accepting something you're both afraid to admit, that it might not be over. That despite the burial stones, despite the final blade, despite the empty manor and the dead root, something still breathes. You watch the first golden rays of light stretch across the clearing, lighting each marker with a soft glow that makes them look like small altars. The breeze is gentle. There are birds again. The world has returned. But inside you, there's still a thread, a taut one, not tied to fear, not guilt. It's awareness, a sense that the line between survival and relapse, between healing and forgetting, is razor thin. Amaranth stirs beside you, finally breaking the silence. You feel it too, she says. You nod. It's quiet now, but not gone. She sighs, rubbing the ash from her hands. We severed the root, yes, but roots leave behind seeds, and seeds lie dormant in silence, just waiting for someone to need them again. You know she's right. Because need, desperate need, was what birthed the Eldridge rites in the first place. They didn't begin with cruelty. They began with control, a way to push back against chaos, a way to make sense of pain, a way to pass power down from father to son, from torch to torch, across generations. But somewhere along the line, power twisted into something else. Ritual. And ritual became religion, and religion became law. And when law is written in blood and silence, it consumes everything. You take a deep breath. We destroyed their doctrine, you say. But what about the others? The splinters, the imitators. Amaranth's jaw tightens. We'll find them. Not if, when. Because she knows, as do you, that Eldridge wasn't unique. It was only the most refined. A blueprint others could and would try to follow. Copycats, cultists, curious seekers who find a page, a symbol, a whisper in the dark and want more. More control, more power, more pain. That's what the Codex Venari really was, a manual for craving. You feel it now like a phantom limb, the pull to reopen those pages, to reclaim the title, to rebuild the chamber, just to see if you could do it better, kinder, cleaner. But no, you know how that ends. Amaranth's voice brings you back. There's one more place, she says. You glance over. She's looking toward the north tree line, her eyes focused on a distant shape you almost missed. A gate, iron, twisted, hidden by ivy, ancient. Your stomach sinks. You know what it is. Not the manor, not a vault. Something older. Something below even the root. You stand together. The air shifts, colder. You walk slowly side by side. As you approach the gate, the forest hushes. Even the birds go still. The metal is covered in symbols, some Eldridge, others not. You brush away vines and leaves until a word emerges etched deep. Remember, not a command, a warning. Amaranth takes a step forward and the gate groans. It opens slightly, just enough. You both peer through. What lies beyond is not a tunnel, not a room, not even a structure. It's a well. A black stone circle in the earth ringed with candles long extinguished, bones scattered around its rim like offerings. At its center, an opening deep and silent. You can't see the bottom, and you don't want to, but you know what it is, the first sight, where the rites began. Not in Eldridge, not in a manor, in this soil. You take a slow breath. What do we do, you whisper? Amaranth doesn't answer. She pulls a small bag from her belt filled with crushed herbs, stones, dried petals, old magic witch's craft. She sprinkles it around the well, whispers something ancient. Not Latin, not English, just true. And then she looks to you. Say their names. So you do. Everyone you remember. Clara. Judith. Silence. Hope. Elspeth. Sabine. Mercy. Even the ones with no names, just titles, numbers, rights. You say them all, and with each name the well seems to shrink, not in size, but in presence. The silence softens, the shadows recoil, and then finally, it's just a hole, just stone and dirt and history, not a wound, not a god, just past. You step back. Amaranth seals the gate with a touch. The vines creep back around it like green thread stitching a wound. Neither of you speak, because nothing needs to be said. You didn't come here to destroy. You came here to close. And now, it's done. Not perfect, not final, but enough. You walk away from the gate, back toward the field. And as the sun rises higher, you let the silence settle inside you, not as weight, but as peace. The sun is higher now, no longer soft gold, but sharp and white, casting long shadows behind you as you step back into the field. The grass sways gently, brushing your legs, like fingers reaching up from the earth, not to pull you under, but to thank you for leaving it whole. You feel it in your lungs, with every breath clean air, unfiltered by damp stone, untainted by incense or the scent of dried blood on velvet. You and Amaranth don't speak for a long time. There's no need. The silence between you isn't filled with tension now. It's not the hush that comes before a scream or the quiet that follows ritual. This silence feels earned, like the end of a long broken hymn finally sung to its last note. You pass the markers again, Judith, Elspeth, silence. Ruth, Mercy, and the others, each one gently glowing beneath the light. None of them flicker anymore. They stand tall, firm, as if the girls themselves have become part of the land, woven into the roots of something new, something gentle. When you reach the edge of the field, the forest parts again. A new path, not worn, not carved, emerging. The earth is soft here, undisturbed. The kind of place where you might build something if you ever dared to settle. The kind of place where a story might not start with pain. Amaranth looks down the trail. "We could stay," she says. You don't answer right away, because the thought terrifies you. Staying means acknowledging there might be life beyond the Eldridge legacy. It means accepting the quiet. It means becoming real again. She sees the doubt in your eyes. She offers her hand. "We can also go," she says. "Keep walking. There are others who need to know." You realize then that both options carry the same weight. To stay is to nurture. To leave is to warn. Either way, you'll never be what you were. You are not an heir, not a priest, not a son of the Eldridge name. You are the one who remembered. And remembering is all it takes to break the cycle. You take her hand. The warmth of it is so human, so fragile that you almost cry. You walk together again. Forward. And somewhere in the distance you hear laughter. Not cruel, not hollow, not echoes from the ballroom. Real laughter. Children. And for the first time in 1,000 lifetimes, you don't fear the sound. You welcome it. Because you know the rites are broken. The codex is ash, the altar cracked, the root dead. And what remains is choice. Your choice. You press your palm over your chest where the Eldridge seal once burned. There's only a faint scar now, a memory, a reminder, and you let it stay. Not as shame, but as proof. Proof that you survived. Proof that you can live. And as the wind carries you down the new road, sun on your back, your heart steady, your mind clear, you know this is no longer the story of the Eldridge family. It's yours now. You walk. And the earth does not close behind you. It stays open. Soft. Ready for what comes next. You've made it. You're free. You've done it. You've made it to the end of one of the darkest journeys we've ever taken here. And if you're still with me, truly, thank you. This story wasn't just about horror or bloodlines or twisted rites. It was about breaking patterns, about survival, about how history, no matter how cruel, doesn't have to repeat if someone is brave enough to remember. Right now, wherever you are, whether you're lying in bed in a dark room curled up under a warm blanket, listening from your car, your couch, or maybe even your favorite reading nook, you can exhale. The worst is behind you. Nothing is lurking at the end of the hallway. There's no masked priest watching from the mirror. There's just this moment, this stillness, this breath, and you deserve it. So let your body sink, let your muscles soften, let your heartbeat slow. Feel the weight of the night slip off your chest. You've wandered through rot and ritual, through false gods and stolen innocence, and you came out whole. You are not haunted. You are not broken. You are here. And that's enough. Close your eyes now if they aren't already. Sink into the quiet. Let the story fade behind you like mist in the morning. You are safe. You are free. And if you dream tonight, may it be of wildflowers.